What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the ZayMoolaSportsPodcast. I'm your host, Isaiah, and we received some surprising news today as the Minnesota Vikings fired General Manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. And as I stated earlier, and I'm going to say it again, y'all, the timing of this decision is very odd because Kwesi was in Alabama this week, attending the Senior Bowl to look at the top senior players in the upcoming draft. And as we all know, general managers start planning for the draft and free agency in December. And so not only did the Vikings allow him to go to the Senior Bowl to scout the top senior players, but they also allowed him to start planning for free agency and the draft, knowing good and well that they were not going to be retaining him. And let's be honest, y'all, this decision did not come out of left field because there were reports last year that the Vikings were seriously considering firing him, but instead they elected to sign him to a contract extension alongside Kevin O'Connell. So it's not like they just woke up this morning and decided, you know what, we're going to fire Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. No, y'all, this is a decision that they have been contemplating for about a year now. And that's my biggest problem with this because I'm not sure why they waited until almost February, y'all, when we're 3 weeks away from the NFL Combine to fire him, because most times when teams fire coaches or general managers, they will either do it y'all, during the season, i.e. the Tennessee Titans firing Brian Callahan, or they do it after the season, y'all, i.e. the Atlanta Falcons firing Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot. That's normally what teams do. They're going to fire a GM or coach during the season, y'all, or literally at the end of the season, but they're not going to wait nearly a month after the season is over to finally decide, oh, we're going to fire our head coach or we're going to fire our general manager, because they know, y'all, that at that point, that GM, he's already put in a lot of work in terms of trying to plan for next season. And that's what Kwesi did. Again, you already know he's been planning for free agency. We already know he's been building his draft board. He, again, was literally just in Alabama this week to scout some of the, best senior players in this upcoming draft. And so the Minnesota Vikings allowed him to do all of that, y'all, only to fire him. And again, that's my biggest issue with that. If you want to fire him, I mean, fine. They have that power to do so. But the fact that you're going to allow this man to do all this planning in terms of free agency and the draft, and then you're going to fire him, y'all, when we're only like a couple of months away from the NFL draft, to me just seems like a big slap in the face to Kwesi. And I think the Vikings handled this just really poorly. Again, they should have fired him, y'all, either during the season, or really they should have fired him last season like they wanted to, but they should have fired him either during this season, y'all, or literally at the end of the season, right after the last game of the season concluded. They should have called him to the office and said, hey, Kwesi, we're firing you. Like, we're going into a different direction. Thank you for your services. But to allow this man, y'all, to conduct himself like he was going to be the GM heading into next season, I don't like that, because again, the Minnesota Vikings, they knew that he wasn't going to be around much longer. Again, they wanted to get rid of him last season. I don't know why they didn't do that. They just decided they were going to bring him back. I guess they feel like it would be a bad look, considering that last season they won 14 games, and maybe they don't, that after this season that they only won 9 games, y'all, which is still, a pretty solid season. But I guess they feel like, well, since this year we only won 9 games, it would be a better look on us if we fire our GM, y'all. But I mean, let's be honest, it's still a really bad look. And it's not like Kwesi was a bad GM. I mean, the Vikings won 63% of their games under his leadership. And I know a lot of people are going to bring up, his bad draft picks, his bad draft classes that he had. But y'all, all GMs have bad draft picks. All GMs have bad draft classes. The thing is, can you overcome it? And Kwesi has proved to us, y'all, time after time after time, that he gonna overcome it. Because although the Vikings didn't have a ton of success in the draft, right, they still had 2 seasons, y'all, where they won 13 or more games. Why? Because Kwesi brought us some really good free agents like Stephon Gilmore, Aaron Jones, Andrew Van Ginkel, Jonathan Grenard, Jordan Mason. And that's why, y'all, the Vikings were still able to have success. And even this season, right? I mean, they came into the season with high expectations, didn't make the playoffs, but they still won 9 games, y'all. Again, that's solid. That would be great for most teams. I mean, I'm a Titans fan. I would definitely take winning 9 games in the season. And so I think a lot of people are just kind of not understanding that, yes, although Kwesi didn't have a ton of success in terms of his draft picks, y'all, they still had a ton of success in terms of winning games. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how you win games. It doesn't matter, if you have to supplement your roster with a lot of free agents, or if you're, hitting the well with your draft picks. Y'all, at the end of the day, the main goal, the main objective is to win games. And 63% of the time, the Minnesota Vikings did that. But y'all, I think this really comes down to the fact that J.J. McCarthy did not live up to expectations this year. And I think that's what cost Kwesi Adofo-Mensah his job. Because, a couple of years ago when the Minnesota Vikings elected to select him, we all knew that although he had tremendous success at the University of Michigan, he was kind of still a raw prospect. But a lot of people just thought because Kevin O'Connell is such a great offensive mind that he was immediately going to be able to turn J.J. McCarthy into a great quarterback. And I still believe that J.J. McCarthy can be really good, down the line. But I just think people had, unrealistic expectations for him. And because of that, he failed a lot of people. He failed to meet a lot of people's expectations. And I think a lot of people are looking at what Sam Darnold is doing with the Minnesota Vikings, with the Seattle Seahawks, and they're saying, man, Kwesi, you should have re-signed him. But let's be honest, y'all. I don't think Sam Darnold would have had the success he's having with the Seahawks that he would have had with the Vikings, because the Seahawks have the perfect structure for him. They have an elite defense and they have a great running game, right? There's two things that the Vikings don't have. The Vikings have a good defense, definitely don't have an elite defense, and they don't have a great running game at all. They have one of the worst rushing attacks in the NFL. And so I think from that perspective, y'all, Sam Darnold, I just don't think he would have had the same success with the Vikings that he's having with the Seahawks. And I don't think we can, blame Kwesi for not re-signing him, y'all, because nobody thought that Sam Darnold was going to, play at this level that he's playing at this season, right? Hindsight is always 20/20, but I will say this, y'all. Again, I do think that ultimately J.J. McCarthy not playing well this season cost Kwesi Adofo-Mensah his job, because a lot of people are looking at Kwesi like, wow, you elected to let go of a guy in Sam Darnold that played at an incredibly high level for you to bring in or to draft this guy in J.J. McCarthy, who did not play at a high level for you this season. And so it's just unfortunate, y'all, because when you look at Kwesi Adofo-Mensah's record, it's not too many GMs that can say that their teams won 63% of their games and they end up getting fired, y'all. A lot of times when GMs or head coaches get fired, it's because they didn't have a lot of success. But for Kwesi, the Vikings had a lot of success, y'all. So I feel bad for him. I don't feel like he should have got fired. And again, y'all, if the Vikings were going to fire him, they should have done this earlier, either last year, the middle of this season, y'all, or at the end of the season. But to allow this man to start planning and prepping for free agency, for the draft, and for the Senior Bowl, y'all, when they knew that they were not going to be retaining him, just rubs me the wrong way. I cannot think, y'all, of a team, waiting this long to fire a GM or a head coach, because, again, most teams do this immediately, y'all. But for the Minnesota Vikings, I just think the organization looks really bad right now. Now, I think they have a strong culture. They have a strong identity. But right now, y'all, Mark and Ziggy Wolf, they look pretty bad, in my opinion, because, again, they should have just let Kwesi go at last year in the middle of the season, or literally at the end of the season. But you allowed this man to put in all that work only to let him go, y'all. So, again, feel really bad for Kwesi. Hopefully he gets a job soon one day, because he definitely deserves it. So there you have it, man. This is me reacting to the shocking news that the Minnesota Vikings fired general manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah after 4 seasons. Remember, y'all, last good message of what? Make sure you get your daily dose. Y'all know I'm in him, and I love y'all. God bless. Peace.